No problemo.
All right, well, thanks for coming on. Uh, Topics I had planned for today are just your history in the competitive scene, TL, and then just game balance stuff, new updates, stuff like that. If you have anything else you want to talk about, though, feel free because it's pretty much just gonna be a casual conversation.
I don't really mind. Whatever, we can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah,
Go with the
sounds good.
flow, whatever the plan is. Yeah, I'm all good.
Sounds good. Oh, and by
Alright.
the way, first off, congrats on OGA. You guys fucking killed it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. Even though I don't know, like we don't really like Miramar, we keep doing well on it. It's pretty funny.
Dude, I know it's so funny. You're always like, I hate Miramar. By the way, we're the best Miramar team in the world.
It's always something that I like whenever I'm negative about something on Twitter or something, like we always do well on that negativity. Because I remember in Starlaga I was complaining like a shit ton, and then we did like really well. And then I complained about TPP and we won TPP and stuff like that. Just pretty funny. I'm just
I
gonna
remember. That's
complain more,
funny.
you know?
That was when you guys won the four in a row or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it about Miramar that you don't like, though, actually?
Um, is this is not for the video, right? This is just casual. Oh, are we starting already?
Oh, I had started already. If you don't want this to be in the video, I can edit it out, though. Just let me know.
No, no, yeah, I'll start recording. It's just my part. I haven't started recording yet. That's why. I'll just
Oh,
hit
okay,
it
yeah.
as well. Miramar is. I think it's much better now with the new patches and stuff. But I feel like the issue with Miramar is I feel like after the first free circles, you could say per se, it becomes really hard to rotate with vehicles because everyone just gets clumped in, and it's just really hard to rotate from point A to point B because it's just dips and stuff. Whilst in a wrangle, you can navigate a lot more with vehicles no matter the what point of the stage in the game. Obviously in some parts of Miramar you can do this, like there's some areas you can rotate, but it's like very limited. So that's
Right.
one thing that I don't like about Miramar, because circles dictate a lot, right? And you need to have good rotations, and sometimes you're just limited to rotate by vehicles and you're forced to rotate by foot. And when you're rotating by foot, it's just much harder to do like good rotations, you know what I mean? And that's
Oh,
something
yeah,
that
for sure.
Miramar limits you. That and like the constant like kind of everyone sees you. Like in a wrangle, you can get third
Oh,
partied.
yeah.
You can get third partied a shit ton in a wrangle and maybe fourth partied. Like, but it's very rare. Like when you see people in a wrangle, it's mainly you see people around you, but they're behind cover. They have hills with trees. The trees like cover a lot of visual ground. There's you know what I mean. Like there's more visual cover, like visibility. And in Miramar, it's like when you're on the top of a ridge or a hill or wherever you are, you're basically being seen 360. Even though you might have cover to take cover for most of the part, like you're still seen by majority of the players, and it's just like I don't really like that. It's like when you're taking a fight, you might get shot by a guy 500 meters away that just visually sees you, and it's just frustrating. You know what I mean?
Right, like you like working with the kind of limited amount of information that everyone can kind of work with on Erangel and extrapolating from there rather than everyone just kind of being able to see everything at all times.
Yeah, pretty much, kind of.
Yeah, I think that makes
Even though I
sense.
like getting info, like the way we play is the majority of the time is just getting info as much as possible. It's just I think in Miramar is just way too much. I feel like it's just
Yeah.
everyone sees each other and it's like, oh wait, the next circle you can't rotate on car, you can. But at the same time, I love Miramar late game. Like the
Oh, dude, Miramar
majority
late game is
of
so much better than Erangel late game.
yeah,
Love it.
the
Love it.
majority of the late game circles and areas that you get is so much better. Like in Erangel, it's more limited than what you can do and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love watching Miramar late game fights with how people choose to spread out and take which cover
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff is so interesting.
Yeah, because when you have like a proper 4v4 fight versus a team in Miramar, it's pretty litty for the most part. But it's just that you get third parties so often that it just removes that part. But that's why late game is good, because it's just you versus one team or another team only, you know, so it becomes fun.
Right. Well, let's just backtrack a bit. So, I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
just talk to you a little bit about yourself because I think I and maybe a few other people don't really even know that much about how you entered PUBG. So, I always assumed that you came in from was it Arma 3 BR? Is that correct?
Kind of, kind of. It's a bit of a mixture of a lot of things. I initially, well, I'm gonna backtrack a lot. I started streaming around 3 years ago in 2015. Actually, 3 years ago, like April, end of April, beginning of May. I started streaming in 2015, and I'm gonna backtrack even more now. Like I've played a lot of games. Like I'm just gonna quickly do a background on my gaming. Like I've played games
Yeah,
since
go.
like 2003, like when I was 13 years old, pretty much. I've been gaming, so I'm kind of old right now. I'm 26. But I've pretty much played like every game from Call of Duty 1, that was the first FPS I played, Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 4, Day Defeat Source, CS, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, like any game you name it, I've played it. Majority of the FPS though is my main like games, but I've always played a shit ton of games. I've always been competitive at them, at all of them. Like I was one of the best COD 1 teams, rifle only at one time. Like Day Defeat Source, I was actually in a German team, one of the best German teams, even though I didn't speak German. I was just a sniper. That's because like how good I actually got. And there's like I've always been like a top of the scene, but never like pro per se. Like all the games that I've been top were not like esport orientated. Like in CS, obviously they had an esports, but I was never pro enough there. I got like a high level, and then I kind of just switched games. Like I think I probably could have gotten in a lot of games that I've played, but I just kind of like gave up because I didn't really enjoy it too much. It wasn't like for me, so I always switched around. That was up until I was like 18, 19 years old, and then I was like, what am I doing? And I wanted to make a living out of gaming, right? Like I always saw esports, League of Legends, CS. Like I'm a huge esports fan. I love watching it, no matter what game. Like now, I never used to like Dota, but nowadays I do. Like if it's an esport, I love it. And since I was a kid, I've always wanted to be a competitive esports player, and I never really got around to it just because I switched so many games and never found a passion for one game. And when I was around 18 years old, when I got 18 years old, I got into poker from a Fiend, a World of Warcraft player, like YouTuber. And I got into poker, and that was like my gateway into kind of like making money off of games, even though poker is kind of a little bit gambling, but you know, there was a lot of skill behind it. And I kind of did that for a while, like back on and off. And I was actually pretty successful, like online poker professional. So I kind of did that, which will go like going forward helped me a lot in battle royale games, because poker is a lot of RNG. And it's like the mindset that you get into poker translates the most out of every esport game, I would say, a battle royale genre, because you're gonna face a lot of RNG situations. And in poker, I learned a lot, and I learned it when I was really young. That's one of my probably best strengths that I have, is just my mindset that I've had. I'm 26 now, and I started playing poker when I was 18, 19. So I've had a lot of experience of a lot of like bad RNG, you know, and this is RNG with you losing money. And you know, in battle royale games, in PUBG, when you lose, you don't really lose out. You just lose out on the potential of winning, but you don't really lose your own like income. But I mean, in a sense, I didn't really lose poker income. It's just like you go up and down in stakes and stuff like that. At the end, I was always winning and stuff like that. I was still successful, but you still had these bad days that it would hit you more than, for example, PUBG would. So I came up with a big mindset of that. So that was me. And yeah, 3 years ago, when I was 23, I started streaming in 2015. And I started streaming initially as a role player. Like I was just playing on a roleplay server with like big streamers like Lyric, Mr. Moonhouse, Fela, Excalibur. These are all like variety streamers. And I got into I got into playing Reign of Kings on their server, actually, because I used to do a little bit of Armor, like Armor 2 RP, and they kind of knew me, so they like referred me to join this server. And I wasn't a streamer, I was just an RPer. And they referred me to this server, and a lot of people find my character funny. My character was named Ralph, and I used to do like an Arnold impersonation kind of thing. And a lot of people found it funny. I was like, yo, you should stream. So I just started my channel, and even though I had a different name back then, I had Pedro Sultana, which was my Armor roleplay. I was like a Mexican guy because I can speak English and Spanish. That was like my jam. And I started my streaming with Pedro Sultana in 2015 as an RP streamer. And then Ark came out like a few months later. After, like I think it was like August, July, August. Ark Survival Evolved, which is a survival game of dinosaurs, similar to Reign of Kings. Similar like structure. It was roleplay as well at the beginning. But I started roleplaying at the beginning of 2015, and then they did like a streamer tournament, the first ever like battle royale of Ark. I don't know if you heard about it or seen it, but they actually did a battle royale game of Ark Survival Evolved. It was called Ark Survival of Fittest, and they did like a massive tournament with all the streamers, Lyric, you know, all these other guys that I mentioned already, Fairlight, Anthony Comfang as well was there. So a lot of streamers, and I was kind of popular back then in Ark. Like I was a really good PvPer, because I kind of transitioned from RP into PvP in these games. And they invited me to the streamer tournament. I actually came second with Partially Royal. We ended up winning like $10,000 each. That was like the second place prize. So it was pretty.
Oh,
It was
wow.
pretty huge. Yeah, it was pretty huge. So that was like my first ever like esport game, but it was all streamers though. It was just one game. It was 5 hours long. This was a 5 hour battle royale game, by the way. You tamed dinosaurs. The circle shrank into the middle. It was just crazy, and we ended up coming second place on that. And my popularity gained even more. And yeah, they officially announced the survival of the fittest game, the battle royale, after that streamer tournament promotion. I became one of the best players in that. There was a lot of tournaments, like $60,000 tournaments in 2016. Like every month you would qualify in a league, like leaderboard structure, and you would play in a monthly tournament, like one game only. It was the best of one. Looking back at it now, it's pretty funny. It was the best of one. Every month you qualified. You had duos, you had solos, and you had 4-man. And I remember one of the months I came first in solos, second in duos, and first in 4-man. I ended up winning like 10K that month. But yeah, I was one of the most successful. Like I was the one that won the most, the one that was most prize money. I think I won over $35,000 total, like individually, as prize money. And
yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, it was not bad. It was pretty good, but I didn't see it yet as an esports game because it had such a small community. You probably didn't hear about it. Like it was only 1,000 to 2,000 concurrent players.
No, yeah, I hadn't even heard of Battle Royale back then, so.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a really small community, and so it didn't really feel esportish. Even though we did have like one LAN in Shanghai that we went, but it didn't feel that sense because no one was really watching it and had kind of like low viewership per se. I mean, it had like maybe 1 to 5K viewership, which wasn't bad. Like on the tournament side, it's kind of what you see in some online leagues in PUBG nowadays. But yeah, that was my take. And then end of 2016, the game like stopped. They stopped developing. They stopped doing these tournaments, $60,000 tournaments. They didn't really update the game, and that's when I kind of made the switch. In the meantime, I was playing a little bit of Armor-Free Battle Royale. Like in some of the days, I was at the same time as playing Ark. So I started playing a little bit Armor-Free Battle Royale. That's why I met Marius, Miniman. I didn't meet them personally, but I saw them in the leaderboards and stuff like that. So I played a couple of months. I don't have too many hours of Armor-Free Battle Royale. I think a lot of people think I actually came from Armor-Free Battle Royale, but I had like only 200 to 300 hours max. I was kind of like not that great at it per se. Like I was decent. I was just learning the game. I was just getting there. But whilst I was learning, I was still playing Ark, so I couldn't put so many hours into it. And then end of 2016, the game ended. I didn't know what to do. My channel was, my stream was mainly SOTF. I was getting like 1K viewers, 2K viewers concurrent at that time. I was kind of really popular. But then the game died. I didn't know what to do. Should I go back to roleplay? Should I focus maybe going into this full-time competitive? And then H1Z1 came out with like the Pro League or like a tournament. I don't remember what tournament it was. I was like, this is Battle Royale. I could give this a try. So I played H1Z1 for like a month and a half or something. And it's fucking horrible, that game.
Oh yeah, I hate it.
It was so hard to grind. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but looking at PUBG is so much better. So I played that for like a month, 2 months in early 2017. And this is when PlayerUnknown himself actually contacted me saying, I have keys for PUBG. They already released that he was going to release a game. I already knew this. Like, I knew PlayerUnknown from Armor-Free Battle Royale. I had access to like the servers to spectate and stuff like that. So I kind of already,
of course,
I kind of already had a relationship with PlayerUnknown. So he hooked me up with some keys. I played like the early alpha, the super early alpha of PUBG, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all at the very beginning. I was like,
well, yeah, it was shit in alpha.
Yeah, it was really shit. Like the graphics, the shooting, it was just not there. But something in me had like a huge belief. Like I believe in PlayerUnknown. Like I think PlayerUnknown is an amazing guy. He made the Armor-Free Battle Royale, which was fantastic. So I had a huge belief like he's gonna make it good. Like this is so early days. But I just didn't play it though. Like a lot of streamers and other players like played a shit ton of it. I was just like, I played it like an hour. I was like, this is not ready yet. So I waited the next week until they updated, and I said, this is not ready yet. And like after a few like tries, early access came out. Like just before early access, I think it was beta. That's when I got hooked. Beta was when I really got hooked. It was just a two to 3 weeks before the early access, like I think early March it was, or end of February. I got hooked to PUBG. It was just they whatever changes they did just was perfect. And since day one, I was just playing PUBG and streaming it, and I got hooked. I was grinding leaderboards, the season 1 solos, got rank 1 with, I was fighting Break, Sigsy, Yuan. It was just basically us 4 and Mithrain. just grinding for
Oh, I
season
remember
one.
those days of watching
Yeah,
streamers, seeing who would take #1. It's
yeah.
great.
So yeah, so that was it, and just grinding season one, season two, season three. Those are the 3 seasons that I grinded solos. I also did like solo duos in NA, like 'cause it was Summit and Vis were playing against each other. So I just decided I'm just gonna try to be better than them, and I instead of like playing duos, I played solo duos. I actually ended up getting like seventh in the leaderboard at one point. I had like a higher win rate than all of them, even though I was playing solo. But I never got my name out there. Like no one really knew how I was per se. But that was it. Yeah, I played a lot of PUBG. I just grinded the leaderboards. You know, I knew Hayes from Arma 3 or Banner Royale, so we had a friendship going on. We played a bit. Moleman was a really good friend of mine that played Ark as well. Like Moleman was the guy that I met from Ark, so he's a really good friend of mine. We played a lot together. We played duos. Then the DreamHack tournament came out in summer, DreamHack summer of 2017. Me and Moleman won the last day of that. You know, that's where we kind of got our name out. And winning off that, we were looking for orgs, and Hayes actually got contacted by Liquid to be a streamer for PUBG, and it was just me, Moleman, and Hollywood at that time that we met at DreamHack as well. It did really well. We were looking for a team, and you know, Liquid just contacted us. Let's make a PUBG roster with you four, and we went to Gamescom. And I guess you know the rest now.
Pretty much. Going back to
Sorry,
one of
I
your
rambled there so long. Sorry
No,
about
it's
that.
all good. Going back to one of your earlier points, though, I was kind of intrigued. You mentioned you got into poker really heavily, which is why I was wondering, is that kind of
Yeah.
where you got really interested in sort of the strategy aspect of video games, and maybe IGLing kind of stemmed from that sort of thinking?
Kind of. I mean, not IGL per se, but like the whole strategy. It's more about strategy and how you minimize your losses and maximizes your profits per se. Like was a huge thing up from poker into, for example, battle royale and stuff. You see the whole strategy, and you see when you do get into bad situations, how can you minimize this? How can you, instead of coming 16th place, for example, in PUBG, you can minimize them to 8th place? Like, what is the best situation you can do with the cards that you've been given, right? So
Right.
for sure.
Makes sense. I guess moving on to where you left off, to Team Liquid, that
Yeah.
first roster. I remember we were just talking about your stats in that old team and how people were saying you were kind of, quote unquote, stuck on that team. And
Hmm.
well, actually, let me ask you this. I've always actually been kind of curious. Let me ask an indulgent question. Did you ever read
Yeah.
that first article that I wrote about you guys and your early drop strategy?
Yeah, I am actually a guy that reads a lot of stuff of PUBG. Like I'm always on Reddit reading things from yourself or from others, like watching videos, watching tournaments. I'm super invested into PUBG, and like I try to get as much info as everything. So yeah, I remember briefly your old article about like the drops and the percentages of when players died in the first circle, the first drop, and the percentages of what happens when you lose a player, like the win rates and stuff like that. I remember
Right,
that
right.
article. Yeah.
Yeah, what was your like opinion of that? Did you think it was like pretty accurate, or did you think I was kind of full of shit, or what did you think?
Um, you were accurate. I mean, you provided the stats, right? You can't go wrong against stats. Like if you lose a player 50% of the games, you're losing a player 50% of the games, right? So, looking at it, yeah, I knew about it. Like before you even provided the stats, I knew that was one of the issues with the strat that we had. That we did drop and we had a high percent of a chance that we would lose a player early game. Majority of the time, it was common people. I mean, like one or two players from the team that would happen because they were in the more high contested areas, obviously. But yeah, it was an issue, but I feel like it could have still been fixed. It's not like I saw that article. It's like, oh, we gotta switch our game plan. It's not working. I think even looking at it, I think it was still a good game plan given the circumstances, because majority of when we got into the scene as Team Liquid, majority of the the compounds and people that were the places that were taken, like they were already taken. We came into like people were already playing PUBG online, right? Like the old Ataxia, there was G Code, all the other teams, Team Kinguin, they all had their own compounds when we arrived. So we had to basically, should we contest as a new team against teams already established as servers, or so we just find a new spot that's free? I can't remember the beginning, but the beginning we used to do like a split, like complete split. Like we used to do like 2-2 split from like Gatka to Far East.
Oh, I remember that.
Remember
That was
that?
so long
That was
ago.
like the first games in PUBG Online. Like that was the first time I think any team, if I don't remember, that did like a huge split like that.
Yeah,
Which
I
on
remember
theory,
because a bunch of people kept saying how like innovative you guys were because you guys were the only
yeah.
ones doing it at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and in theory, that strat looks really good, but you know, in practice, you just have such a higher chance of losing players, and rotating to the other team is just really tough. So yeah, I'm always a guy that wants to try new things, and if I see a meta, I want to like shift around it and not be too stale. Because you know, if you copy other people's strats, and let's say your team is individually less skilled than them, then you're never gonna beat them. You know what I mean? You need to do a different
for
strat to beat them. But back then, I mean, this is not that was not my mindset per se, but like we needed to find a spot. We tried a few things, and then I just saw the meta. I saw the meta was back then was 20 teams with shitty circles that you needed to drive into the middle of the circle, and that was kind of the meta, right? Like, oh, the strongest thing is to be in the middle of the circle as fast as possible. So I saw an opportunity east of Rozhok, east of school, had a lot of vehicles and still has. I think that's one of the highest populated car areas in the whole map to grab a car. So I was like, if we have 4 cars or 3 cars in the team and we can loot just a little bit of compounds and get geared and go in the middle circle, that's a really high chance of doing well. Which we started doing, and we had actually pretty a lot of success, in my opinion, at least. Like, we did have good games, but we did have those issues, like he's pointing out, that we did lose players early game. And even still, we did lose those players early game. I still think, obviously, the mistakes of the players in themselves dying there could have or should have been fixed as well. It was not technically the spot that we landed. It was more like individual mistake. Like, it could have been avoided, in my opinion. But it still was a highly contested area that you're still gonna have a chance of losing a player. But I think the risk was maybe worth it at the time. Just given
Yeah,
the
and especially
circumstances.
back then, the meta was so undeveloped and people were like
Yeah.
changing all the time. So,
Yeah, like right
I don't.
now, if I'm in this situation, the meta of 16 teams, the circles that we have and stuff like that, if I look at now, like, that's a bad strat. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not worth losing a player. Like, right now, you need to have 4 players. But back then, you needed the circle. So, yeah, that's a strat we did.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess like to add on to that, when did you like, or I don't really know who it was, but when did either you or Team Liquid kind of realize we need to change up this roster, or get these new players, right? Because the new roster of Santi, James, Ibiza, and you is like dominating, right? You guys are so good, and it seems like it was pretty much a one-to-one correlation with switching out the 3 players. So when did that whole process kind of start to take place?
It was basically after a couple of months of results and just overall, like, how long were we together? We were like end of July. We got together in August till December, so it's like roughly 4 or 5 months. We had a good run. Like, I feel like I saw your recent post that you were saying the top orgs with bad teams, and you mentioned us there. And I think we were underestimated how decent we actually were, even though we were not great. We were like there. It's because,
To be fair, in that video, I did mention you guys positively as an org that was willing to make changes in order to get better.
Yeah. But I mean, as in that old Team Liquid roster, I think a lot of people are like shut on it. Like, they were saying there was a bad team or something like that. But I don't think we were. Like, in PUBG Online, at the beginning, we got like 13th and we went to relegations, and then we promoted in those relegations. And the next season, we actually ended up 4th place in the whole league. And in Awesome, we were still like top 6 or top 8. Like, we were always placing, and GLL as well, by the way. We were 6th or 7th place in GLL the first preseason in the league structure. But the issue that the old Team Liquid roster had is we placed really well in leagues. Like, we came 4th, 5th, or 6th in leagues, like, throughout the whole season. But when it came down to the final, like the grand final, you had to play like a best of 5 or best of 6. That's when we shit the bed. That's where the results, the statistics of the results you see. You see probably like a 13th place, a 12th place, a 14th place in all these finals. And if you look at it from that, that's really bad. But if you look at the leagues and how we play consistently, like on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, we were actually placing well. We were just choking really hard in tournaments. Like Oakland, we came 10th place, even though I feel like we should have come top 5. We just, for some reason, we were just getting like either bad luck or a lot of mistakes in just the grand finals. So if you look at it from that way, yeah, we did place bad, but I think it was just not as bad as people thought it was. I still think, overall, we were still like a top 5, top 6 EU team back then, which technically isn't bad, you know, like that isn't bad in a sense to be top 5 EU. That's still pretty decent. But going back to it, yeah, like you said, why did the roster things happen is basically the results. was the main issue.
Yep.
Like, I want to be the best team in the world. That's my mindset. Like, I want to be the very best. And the results that I was seeing, like, you know, consistently getting 5-6, but never first, never second, never third, you know, choking in the finals, like, something is going wrong. You know, it could be a strats, one of the main issues, or, you know, just comes down to individual players, you know, statistics. I was getting the most kills, I was calling and stuff like that, when it should be the case. I was giving out most of my resources to the rest of my teammates so they can shine and stuff like that. But yeah, like, it was just results were not getting in there. Team Liquid kind of saw that as well. But Team Liquid was never like pushing per se to just, like, you know, kick this guy or remove this or blah blah blah. You know, they were never like pushy on top of us. Team Liquid is just an amazing org, and they want the best for us. If they see we're struggling, like, they rather have us fix it than like bringing in new players. But I just, back in my mind, I feel like we needed to do big roster changes, and I don't want to go into too many details of what exactly happened and stuff like that, but I just think
yeah, of course.
Roster changes needed to happen, and Team Liquid saw that. They saw the results, and they wanted to be #1 as well. And, you know, we saw these players that were a possibility to join Team Liquid, and we just went for it. And, you know, here we are. If I go back, do I regret this decision? I mean, I kind of do in a way, and I kind of don't. I mean, I'll talk about it, because the reason I regret it is because Molman and Hayes and even Hollywood are really good friends, especially Molman. Like, Molman, I came from ARC, we're really good friends. I got into this with him, and, like, it kind of sucks to do a decision like that where you're left alone and all these guys are out, you know, kind of thing, and bringing new players. Like, because Molman is a really good friend, and winning with Molman is just amazing. And that feeling is still kind of shitty and still in the back of my mind right now. But at the end of the day, I took it with an attitude that I don't know how long I'm going to be here in esports, and I want to leave a mark. In a sense, I want to be the best team. And I just feel like back then, in my mind, I don't think I could have achieved that with that old roster. And I just needed a change. And I mean, yeah, it was the best decision, obviously. I mean, these players, and Samty, Jeems, and EBs are just monsters. And, you know, I don't regret it, obviously, in that sense. You know, like, we're literally destroying a lot of shit right now. It took us a few months to step in, you know, like, to do it all together. But, you know, it's been really good, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember when the roster first started, everyone was saying this roster is going to be beast. They're not jiving right now. Give them a couple months. And then,
yeah,
of course, like everyone predicted, you guys started beasting.
There was some people that were saying, like, yeah, they're all fraggers, but they're not gonna work well together. There was some, like, negativity against it as well. Like, it's just all powerhouses, but, like, it won't, like, mesh well with, but which we kind of struggled at the beginning. Like, we all had different ideas, because we all kind of like shot callers per se in our previous games, right? Teams. EB was like a shot caller. James wasn't per se, but he had like a lot of ideas, and Samty as well loves to shot calling. So at the start, that was one of our main issues, was just the clash of different perspectives and different ideas and how to approach and stuff, and just like meshing together. Like, PUBG is so much about synergy. Like, it's crazy. Like, if you're all on the same page, the difference it does is huge.
But, you know, I think that kind of clash of ideas and just the ability of everyone to be a leader is really helpful. I remember Fuzzface saying too, like, everyone on the team has the ability to lead, right? They don't just have like one dedicated IGL, and I think that's a trait of a lot of top teams that probably some more people are going to try to copy, where everyone is able to IGL and lead at any time.
Yeah, I think it's, in my opinion, in PUBG at least, is something that every team, I see so many different teams like have this mistake of having one IGL, and maybe he's like a little bit close-minded, and that's a huge issue. If they're close-minded IGL, then it just becomes an issue, because everyone in the team is getting different info, and everyone in the team it's so many teams in one game. The map is huge. You need a lot of info. Just getting it from one guy and following him sometimes it's not like CS where you just set strats and he calls, and you have some mid calling through the round and stuff like that. But I feel like PUBG is mainly about mid calling. I mean, early game you can have one guy giving the shots because he has the time to do so and the info, but after that it should be like it should be a team effort, which is something in our team that we've like progressed to as well. Initially we had everyone calling, which was a mistake because we all had different ideas. Then we had like one or two guys only calling, but we still like lacked info in certain areas, or, you know, maybe we could have done a certain push because one guy wasn't calling, he didn't say it and stuff like that. And we just like organically came together that we're all just shot calling right now. Like, we all have trust in each other, like whatever stage of the game. Like, if it's mid-late game, if I see a call that I can push this in an area, they all like follow me, and we do it. If it's EBs are calling it, or Samty, mainly it is Samty and James. Like, you still need to have a a figure, like a head figure, which is Samty and Jeems. They're like the shot callers, depending on each stage of the game. But you need to have all 4 calling and the trust of all that, and that's a thing that teams lack. I see teams like only one in-game caller, and or they don't trust his teammates and stuff like that. Like that's the key thing in my opinion.
Well, the deal with only having one in-game caller, and I know this is someone that does coaching and analysis for a few teams, is like sometimes the other members either just really don't want to or are really bad at it, right? Like the only thing they can do is frag.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Some people don't know how to shot call, or don't really want to shot call and just fragging, but I think that's a communication error as well. I feel like you don't have to be only a fragger. Like to be the best player, you need to be 1, a fragger, and 2, be really good at communications. If you have a player that's not really communicating, then even though he's an amazing fragger, you can still use him. Don't get me wrong. Like you can still use him in the team. Like he doesn't really need to talk. But if you have like 3 of those, then it becomes really tough. Unless you're like the really great in-game leader, you have to be the very best. Then you can make that work, but it's definitely tougher.
Yeah, you have to be like the high of PUBG.
Yeah, for sure.
So we already talked about Miramar, but like, what do you think about the recent update? Because that's been pretty big with like the weapon changes and I think there's a Miramar change and also the water change. They finally changed the water. So do you have any like general ideas on any of that or anything you want to go into?
I think this patch, I posted I think on Twitter or something, I think this is probably my favorite patch in terms of how it just changed up the whole game, because we got to a stage where, I mean, you see this in other games as well, right? The meta becomes the meta and it just becomes a little bit stale until they update stuff, but it got just to a point where it was just double ARs everywhere. Like it was just M4, M4, M4 Scar, M4, M16, you know, with a red dot or 4X on either gun. It was very rare to see any different setups, at least in the Western scene. I mean, in the Asia scene, they still rock shotguns and stuff like that, but just TPP benefits more from that and stuff like that, so I can't really say.
Yeah, and who cares about that?
Anyway. Yeah, but yeah, it just become a little bit stale. It was just ARs everywhere. Like 90% or 99% of the kills was ARs. Like sometimes you saw people use Kar98s. I mean, people still chose them, but it was only maybe 1 player from each team that had it, and it was still like, it was weak per se. It wasn't as strong as it was, because you would see a full team with full level 3 helmets, and it just was not good. I mean, minis at the beginning were really popular, but then they nerfed the mini, and then it was kind of shit. SKS was kind of very rare for a pro team to get. I mean, there's just, ARs was just too good. They were just too good. They were good for short range, medium range, and long range. There was no point using any other gun. So it kind of got stale in that sense. And it was just way too easy to kill people, in my opinion. I think the skill level to kill people with a 4X and AR back then, and even kind of now-ish, was easy. So seeing this update, they changed all the recoil patterns. They buffed, you know, DMRs. They buffed the snipers indirectly by removing level 3 helmets. They nerfed the AR's recoil. They buffed some SMG damage and stuff like that. I just feel like the whole mixture made it more interesting. And one, it's more skill now because it's harder to spray as it was in the past. It's harder to 4x with ARs now than in the past, which was lasers with all guns pretty much. So now DMRs are much better. So you're seeing in tournaments and scrims and stuff like that, you see people running now, you know, AR minis, AR SKS, AR Kar98, you know, DP SKS, like even SMGs slash like DMRs is kind of becoming meta. I feel like AR is still the strongest because it's one, it's the most common, and two, it's the most universal and what you can use with it. But you're definitely seeing a bit more dynamic in that sense. So that in that sense is just really amazing. I like that. I just think it just become a bit stale. It become unskillful, and now it's way more skillful to shoot people, way more dynamic in each different gun, and yeah, that I just think it's great in my opinion. The water like you mentioned as well. I think like water was a huge issue, mainly with the river circles in the Rozhok. That main one is the main issue.
God.
Whenever each circle happened that and it shrunk to the very last, it was chaos. And I think the water initially I didn't like it. I thought people would still be able to go in the water, but it's really tough now. I feel like it's a good change, even though I believe the map needs to be redesigned. I feel like Rozhok River should be completely removed in my opinion. I don't think you should have people like, the issue with the water right now is not like you dive in and stuff like that. It's just like the rotations is tougher. Like if you have vehicles and you're on the south side of one river, you can't go through the bridges and you can't go through the river with the cars, so you're just forced to basically dive there. You know what I mean? And just
You know,
wish
this is actually the
good luck.
reason why I'm starting to like competitive Miramar much more than competitive Erangel, is because of the way the river affects the rotations.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt, I agree as well. Like the bad circles in Erangel is just horrible. I just love the good ones, but whenever you do have the rivers, when you do have the militaries with the water, it's just disgusting.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of interesting watching how some teams are kind of learning to play around the new water changes, because you could definitely tell, especially like days after the patch, that people were so used to using the water as like a crutch late game, or just
Hmm.
like if they don't have anywhere to go, let's go to the water. And now you can't really
Yeah.
do that, or else you're fucked.
Yeah, you have
It's
to risk more
interesting.
now instead of just like, safe banking on the water, which people still do. I think you can still safe bank water, especially the more people that go, the better it is. Because if you have one if you have one team holding the water and you're the only one in the water, you're gonna 100% die. I mean, you would 100% die even in the old patch if you're the only one in the water and you're getting
Yeah.
focused. But the benefit of in the past was like if there was like 10 guys with you in the water, it was harder for them to shoot because you all duck up and down and they different focus and stuff like that. But now it's like so much easier to shoot. Like even if there's a lot of people, it can still help you, but you're gonna eventually die with this team camping water. So you're gonna see more strats of people actually going for water earlier to camp just in case it does happen. You're gonna get a lot of kills. Like it's
Yeah.
really high kill heavy now to go for water.
So I guess changing topics a bit. I wanted to talk about the current competitive rule set a bit, since we kind of touched on like ages ago last year when you had the old meta with the old shitty circles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if my understanding is correct, the current competitive rule set basically came about because a bunch of EU guys, namely like you, Minimint, I think some guys from DC, like really put in the time and effort to test all the different settings and how it would affect everything, and then kind of bundled it all together and sent it to tourney orgs and PUBG Corp. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was basically, I believe, after Oakland, I am Oakland, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I just didn't like the way it was going. Squads, 20 teams, the circles were shifting for 50% each time. And I was just seeing a pattern of just so many people were dying at each given time. There was too much chaos. There was not that much skill per se to get into circle. It was just a bum rush all the time. I didn't enjoy that. I came from armor. I mean, not from armor per se, but I saw the armor circles. You had more room to move in. It was just more fluid, and I don't know. I just saw that, and Minimum obviously as well. And we just decided, we have the custom servers. We could change the settings. Why don't we just change the settings ourselves? We were waiting for PUBG Corp to maybe do something, maybe update it, but let's do it ourselves. See how it is. We got player feedback obviously in the Scrim Discord and stuff. We asked teams like, would this be a good idea, like initially having bigger circles. It makes sense to have bigger circles so it's not less hard. So people agreed you needed more wait time. Sometimes the zone, the blue, in the old vanilla settings, the blue circle pushed faster than you can actually run. When in a competitive sense it just made no sense. People were just dying to blue and stuff. So we just came together. It was me and Minimum mainly. We just went on custom servers. We just brainstormed and did circle changes. Initially the first phase was and vanilla is 0.4%, 0.40, which is 40% of the map is the first circle. We thought like initially we thought like 16 teams was better, so we made the first circle smaller, 35% instead of 40, and we just started from there. And we just tweaked each circle, the time and the size as best as we could so it wouldn't screw the last circle. That was our main issue. Was we would sometimes make the circles initially, like the first drafts we did was like, let's say the first phase is 35%, then it was like 60% shrink, 60% shrink, 60% shrink, and all of that. So it was like big shrinks all the time. But what would happen is the last phase, a very, very small one, was way too big, because obviously the phases before that was bigger than normal. It was just too big. And we needed to cut from each phase as much as possible to make the last phase similar to vanilla, because we didn't want to be too different from the ending that we're used to, right? So we did a lot of we had over 500 games, like custom games made or something like that we spent like week, day in and day out, like doing the customs. It was me, Minimum, and Yannick from Rogue. It was basically us three. Yannick would sometimes join. He had like really good feedback, but it was just mainly me and Minimum, and we just tweaked, and that's the settings we have today was basically the final product. We did have like a few testings on scrims with earlier like irritations, but they were not that great until we came to this one, which we felt was pretty good for 16 teams in Erangel at least, and that's pretty much it. And we gave that to NA. They played on scrims. They loved it as well. Like initially, I think everyone loved the circles because one, you could outrun it. Two, it wasn't too chaotic in the mid game that the old vanilla was. And it was just more fluid from start to finish, in my opinion. I mean, I think it still can be better, but for the resources that we got, like the 8 phases only that we got and stuff like that, I think it was good. I feel like the game needs 1 more phase or 2 more phases that we can tweak the circles even better. But for what we got, I think we got probably the best product in terms of like competitive scene, in my opinion, like circles.
Yeah, Yannick and Minimint were 2 of the people that I first interviewed, actually. And I remember when I was talking to Minimint, it was mainly about competitive settings and stuff like that. And he said the same thing. He said, we just need one more. We need one more circle, and we're perfect. But
because still right now the circle killer is like phase 6, like 5, 6. Those are the main killers. A majority people die, and we need to make that a little bit bigger and then add 1 more phase to control it. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
it is what it is.
Well, maybe someday.
Maybe one day, but now we're going back. We're going back to 20 teams and different settings now, which is
we're going back in
but...
time. So how does it feel to have all of your hard work go to waste?
I mean, initially when all the announcements and stuff came out, I was extremely pissed off because we went from 20 teams to 16 teams for a reason. Multiple reasons, actually. Like, obviously, one of them, the majority at the beginning was optimization. Like, we were getting 30 to 50 FPS in competitive games with 20 teams for such a long time, and we all are really getting frustrated with that. You know, so obviously lowering the amount of teams definitely helped. It wasn't that much though, like you still get low FPS, but it definitely helped. And it's just a gameplay, like the gameplay, people are not going to die early game, like through 20 teams or 16 teams. That doesn't matter. You're still going to get 10 minutes of freaking nothing. You know what I mean? That's all about rotation and looting patterns. You're not going to change that with circle settings at all. Like, that's not going to happen. That's, in my opinion, I love that part of PUBG. That's like the strategic part, you know, even though it does drag on a bit too much for viewers. You know, that shit's gonna happen whether you have 25 teams or 16 teams. Yeah, maybe 25 teams, a few more players might die at the very beginning, but it's not, you're gonna miss it anyway. So you know what I mean? Like, it's pointless.
Yeah, and
so,
you know, I feel like it only really drags on because like some commentators just don't even really know what to talk about or like what they should be looking for to talk about, and I feel like it's kind of a problem. I think that one video I did with wide rotations is like part of my first bit of trying to educate people about what they can maybe talk about, which teams are going to be looking for wide rotations and stuff like that. But maybe, you know, bit by bit, we can start to get, you know, everyone kind of a bit more keyed in on what they should be looking for early game so that people aren't so bored and just talking about random stuff.
The thing is, people like action, people like kills. I understand that from the casual perspective, but that's not what PUBG is. As I mean, if you look at, for example, chess, it's all about strategic build up. You know, CS, the very first like 30 seconds is people smoking out the strategic things. You know, League, you have the picking the champions, and then like the early phase is pretty much no action per se. You know, it just builds up. Obviously, in PUBG, it builds up a little bit slower. You know, it's 10 minutes instead of like a few seconds or minutes in other games. But you have a lot to talk about. You can talk about one specific team and see what they do, or like, for example, if it's a very first game, you can just talk about like history of each team and focus maybe on one team. I don't mind if you focus on like the most popular team. For example, let's say in the Western scene, the most popular is TSM. I don't mind if you focus on them in the first game and just give them a history and a bit of story in the very first 10 minutes. And then in the next game, you talk about like maybe the team that won on the first game, or just like, that's just one example. And then obviously more is just rotations, like you said, general rotations and what teams are doing, at what times are they rotating and stuff like that. There's so much to talk about in the first 10 minutes. That comes down to mainly, you know, the observer, the caster that catches a little bit and on stuff like that. Plus, you know, the main one is the casters, obviously, with the knowledge and stuff like that. They're translating that information to the viewers, that it becomes interesting, right? But yeah, I mean, talking about the 16 teams and 20 teams going back, first of all, it was optimization, but second of all, it's just fluid gameplay. Like, less teams early game equals less teams overall mid game. If you have 20 teams, that's not going to change anything. You're still going to have 19 to 20 teams in the mid part of the circle, which is the same size, and it's just going to be too chaotic. With 20 teams, like the majority of the spots after 3 or 4 phases is going to be taken. You know, teams can't do these wide rotations. Team can't do any strategic rotations per se. The macro play goes way down when you have more teams, and it just becomes way too micro. One, which is really hard for players, and 2 for viewers, and 3 for casters. Like, when it's 20 teams all fighting to go into the circle, you just miss so much. And 16 teams, yeah, it still happens with 16 teams, but it's just much better. You have more room to do stuff, and that's one of the reasons I like 16 teams and why we went down to 16 teams. So now seeing this PUBG Corp release 20 teams was kind of frustrating. We're just going back in time, like, but that was my initial reaction, right? Like, you know, why they're not listening to us, you know. Then they wanted their own settings as well, their own circle settings, even though ours was successful, you know, their own AR settings and gun settings, you know, everything was changed, point system, and all that was like, I was just frustrated because we just went back 8 months or 6, 7 months, whatever. Like, that was my initial reaction.
I mean, I feel like that's how everyone felt, right?
Yeah, but then the second opinion, my second thought was like, they're still listening. Like, PUBG Corp, it's not like they're completely ignored. Like, if you think about it, like the Western scene, yeah, we have 16 teams, but the Asia scenes, they're TPP, they're 24 teams, they have vanilla circle settings. If you're thinking about it, at least they met in between. You know, they went in for 20 teams, they did FPP and TPP, and the circle settings they're providing is like an in-between between ours and theirs. You know, it's still good. It's not great, but it's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, in a way, if you look at it from the big picture, the setting, they helped everyone. You know, like, I think if you look at that sense, I think it's good. Like, I'm not pissed off anymore. I still prefer 16 teams, but you know what I mean? Like, it could have been worse. That's my thought right now. It could have been way worse. It could have been just like, they could have said like, you know, screw the Western scene, Asia, TPP, $2 million tournament, 24 teams, and vanilla settings. You know, if that would have been a thing, you know, that could have been way. I wouldn't have been playing, by the way. I think I would have quit PUBG. I'm not even joking.
I know you're not. It's just funny.
If it's 24 teams TPP with vanilla settings, I would just quit. But they met in between. They are listening. Like, we are in contact with PUBG Corp. Like, their team, the esports side, they're like really dedicated now. And I've seen Light. I have discussions with them, and they really, really care about like the Western scene. They care about us. They care about esports. So, you know, going forward, I think this is good. This is the first. This is going to be the first tournament, which I see it as a showcase. This is more not. It's not going to be like a competitive first tournament. I think it's just going to be like Gamescom was, you know, where all the streamers, and it was just a showcase of PUBG esports. I think this is what it's going to be, and it's just going to be its first one, but it's going to improve from here on, and it's going to be good in the future, in my opinion, with what I'm hearing and seeing, to be honest.
I think that's fair. I think just to play devil's advocate for a bit, and I think more of my opinion is that the only problem with thinking about it like that is like you're valuing the way the Western scene plays the game and the way the Eastern scene plays the game equally, right? So like if that's what you're trying to do, then like what they did with the competitive rule set makes sense. But I feel like looking at it from an objective point of view, and obviously this is an objective point of view from a Western point of view, so maybe it's not as objective as I'd like, but it just seems like the Western way of playing the game is so much better. Right.
No, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. It's hard to really justify in my own mind going back to 20 teams in TPP after all this time, even with still meeting in the middle if you consider all the regions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree completely. I mean, I am in the Western scene, but I watch TPP. I played TPP. You know, there's a reason we went to FPP. There's a reason we went to 16 teams. You know, that's my opinion. That's a Western's opinion. And, you know, seeing this tournaments going back and stuff, yeah, it shouldn't be a thing. It should be a unified system where it should either be, you know, if PUBG Corp want to do TPP, if the Asia scene want to TPP and they want to listen to Asia, you know, do that. I'll quit the game, but you guys do that. It's better than to do that, or to go full-time FPP and everyone on the same page, than to do this mix per se and like back and forth is just annoying because it is different game styles. Like going from 16 to 20 teams is completely different. TPP to FPP is completely different. I mean, it's not huge differences, especially from one side to the other, but it still is. But it's just frustrating as a player to be changing circle settings, perspectives, you know, maps and players and teams. It's just too much. It should be like just unified already. But obviously, if we say that, they most likely might go for TPP 24 teams. But I don't know. Like, I think they have the good heart, like mindset going into it. I think the Asia scene were not ready yet to go all the way down, and them still starting to see, like, they're probably in the same stages we were when we wanted to switch from FPP TPP. You know, initially the NA scene and a lot of from the EU scene as well didn't want to switch to FPP. You know, there was a lot of hesitation and stuff like that. A lot of us have tried to push for FPP. We were like, you know, this is a way forward. We see this is much more skill, and they were like, no, TPP is nice and stuff like that. I think that's how I see Asia scene right now. You know, they still like a TPP and they're not seeing it completely. until they properly play it out and realize, I don't know, in the terms of Western scene, we realized after 1 month. For them, it might take a little bit longer, but I think eventually it will be there. I have high hopes that it will be FVP in the future.
Yeah, me too.
Like unified.
Have you watched any of the tournaments between like Australian teams and Chinese teams, like the Zemo Invitational?
I watched a little bit of the Zemo Invitation, not too much because it was like a different time for me. It was like way in the morning, I think. But I watch a few games, yeah. I watch a few. It was TPP only though.
I know, but the thing is like the OCE teams who play strictly FPP like kind of dominated the tournament.
Yeah.
Which is
they
kind of
there was only like
of the
one
skill
good
difference, right?
Yeah, there was only like one good Chinese team, I think, right? 4EM, I think it was.
I believe it was OMG actually.
OMG, yeah. It was only one of them I remember. I don't know if it was 4EM or OMG, but yeah, the majority of them was just Australian teams. And it was also 20 teams, right? Like it was 20.
I believe it was 20, yeah.
And OCE are used to 16 as well, right?
OCE uses 18 in CGI, their main event, but actually in the CGI finals they use 12, which is super troll.
What the hell?
Yeah, exactly right.
What's next level? OCE, what are you guys doing over there? But yeah, I watched a few games. It was interesting. TPP. Yeah, I can't watch too much of it. I just like when I see people like behind trees and looking over and not doing anything and then shooting and the guy pushes you is disgusting. But I didn't watch it. I still watch. I like seeing what teams are doing and stuff like that.
Australia.
Australia like did.
I think
dominate.
China is the weakest region, though. Like it wasn't a surprise per se, in my opinion.
To be honest, like looking at it.
Even though they play TPP.
Even though they play TPP.
FPP TPP. Once you get used to knowing how to push in the hole and stuff like that, it's not like the big issue. Just because OCE was going to play TPP, they're going to do much worse. We saw that in Starladder. Like I would lick won TPP and stuff like that. The Western team was
still dominating in TPP, in my opinion. So it's not like a huge issue. And I think OCE is stronger than China region right now, at least in my opinion. What I've seen, what I've competed against, they seem to know more about like rotations and meta and stuff. Even though they might be like less individually skills than the Chinese sometimes, but like the overall game sense and macro play and stuff like that, I feel like they're more on page to how to play. So
yeah. And I'm not hating on the individual play of Australia. I think that's some really good players there. I'm just saying, like comparing them. You know, it seemed like China was a bit more mechanically skilled, but they just lacked the whole how to play the game.
No, I actually think you're completely right, and especially it makes sense if you just look at the server population, right? Like with the Chinese server population, you'd have to expect that if nothing else, they at least have some decent individually skilled players there.
Yeah, and they've always like known to be micro mechanically good. Like look at League of Legends as well, right? Like the majority of the Chinese teams in the past on the finals and stuff, they're always really good, but they lack the macro play compared to like the Korean. The Koreans are just really good at macro play, plus micro play as well. Don't get me wrong, they still can outskill, but I feel like that's something China was always known for, is like, you know, just fighting. They're just known for fighting in League, at least in my opinion. I don't know nowadays, I haven't watched too much, but they're always like, just like chaos, and they just end up winning because their team fighting was better, like in terms of like micro level, but they're like the macro play was a bit more lacking compared to like Koreans and stuff. So I kind of see that in PUBG as well, like developing more or less.
What do you think about the Korean scene right now in PUBG? Because I haven't really heard too much in a few months since like whatever the last one was. I think PGL.
Yeah, I mean I can say Starlight and PGL. I think, in my personal opinion, Koreans had the most potential. The word is that I think the word I would say is because I think they were better than China. They were better than OCE. They were slightly worse than NA as per se. Or, I mean, they were worse than NA. I'm not going to say slightly worse. They were like behind NA, and they were behind, obviously way behind EU. But they had potentials in like the first few days. They struggled, but then they brought it back. Like they were learning pretty fast throughout the whole tournament. Like it was really nice to see of them to do. Like they would struggle, but then they would just like put up a level that's like this level. They can actually compete, and they show like high skill in their macro play and individual play. So I feel like Korea is definitely going to be the it's just the way they are as well. I mean, I think their mindset is in esports in general, the structure as well they have over there. Like they're scrimming so much and they're playing so many games that obviously they're going to be good. I don't think they were ready yet per se, but I think it's going to be a matter of time where they're going to be competing versus, definitely at least versus NA really recently, like really close now. They're getting there.
Yeah, you think NA is pretty far behind EU, right?
I don't think they're really far behind EU. I think there's a lot of EU NA banter going off, and I obviously get involved in that, like recently on Twitter as well. It's just because I see a lot of I think NA is mainly known to banter a lot. Like I've always seen them banter, so I like to strike them back and get them a little bit salty. But in my honest opinion, I think NA is weaker than EU. I think NA has a lot of decent teams, but I think they're just decent, whilst EU has really strong teams. I just think EU is right now. I mean, it's proven looking at all the tournaments and results and stuff that EU is just it's performing higher. I think there's. I mean, look at the tournaments when there's signups, right? EU, when there's an offline event, EU has like 1,000 team signups, whilst NA has like 300. You know, the quality, not only is the quality of higher, it's just because of the teams, right? We have so many more teams. Obviously, there's more competition, and we just have higher quality teams overall. I think there's probably like 40 good EU teams, whilst in NA you can probably say like 20, right? So in that sense, yeah, EU is, in my opinion, better right now, but there's a lot of like good NA teams, and they can still compete against us. They can still win tournaments. I'm not like saying they will never do that, but I just think it's just a bit stronger right now on the EU side.
Well, Ghost did already win a tournament, so.
Yeah, I mean, but they are 2 EU and 2 NA. I don't. To be honest, I don't. I don't classify them as NA because of that. I mean, they still play on NA tournaments and stuff like that, and they're actually struggling right now. They're having the same issues we had as Team Liquid. I feel like the games that I'm watching them, I don't want to talk too much about them, but I feel like they're having the same issues we had initially. Like we had the very first time we bought our team, we had like a honeymoon period where we came second in Curse and we were doing really well in scrims. Like everyone was like, "Oh, Team Liquid is going to be one of the best teams," and then we went all the way down. We struggled. We didn't qualify for tournaments. We weren't not doing bad per se, but we were like definitely struggling. I see that in Ghost right now. When they first made their roster, they won PGL. They came top 3 in GLL. They were doing really good, and now they like seem to be struggling a little bit. And I think they're having the same issues we had, like different ideas, different calls, and when it goes bad, it goes worse. You know.
I feel like
but
they
I
might
have
be having
hopes.
some internal issues too, though, because their manager was just let go. What, today?
Yeah, Trey left. I guess I don't know that they maybe I don't know what his involvement was. We can't really say from the outside. I mean, Trey was a nice guy. I know these guys, and I like the Ghost guys as well. But I guess from the outside perspective, maybe he was a bit more involved in the coaching scene, and since they're struggling, they just decided to kick him. I could be completely wrong. I don't really want to step on toes or anything like that. But yeah, they're obviously having more issues now, and I would imagine it's just basically because they don't have that much experience to playing together. They might have a good run at PGL and GLL, but that's only a few games. When you play a lot of games is when you start getting that experience and that missed calls, miscommunication, different ideas and stuff like that. And that just takes time. And I think they're in that spot right now where they're gonna struggle, but I have high hopes they're a good bunch of players, a good team, and I feel like they'll strive back again and be there. It's just gonna be time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, they're 2 EU, 2 NA. So right now, I classify them as they are like a mix. They're a mix in between.
Yeah. So who do you think the best
maybe
NA teams
maybe
are?
in the
TSM?
future is NA. TSM?
I'm joking, dude.
Best NA team. The thing is, NA is weird.
Like I don't watch too much. I tend to watch as much as possible, but sometimes that tournament's gone to like 2 or 3 a.m. that I can't really watch them. But what I've seen, from my perspective, I don't think there's an NA team because they're just switching every it seems like every week or every month and every couple of months is just like they're up and down all the time. It's not like EU where you see FaZe is without a doubt the best team in the world, best team in EU because they're winning leagues. They're coming first all the time, or they're top 3. It's easy to say, right? It's easy to say they're the best team. And then like with us, Liquid, we've been winning a lot recently. You can say we're one of the top teams. Knights has been consistent. You have these EU teams that are always there. Whilst in NA, it feels like sometimes they're there and then they fall short. Sometimes they're there and then they fall short. And it's just like a bunch of them are doing that. And it's hard to pinpoint who's better. Like right now, if I would say, I mean, Tempo Storm won DreamHack qualifiers and they looked good when they come first place. But then they might fall short. I have like 5 names I could say. I guess Tempo Storm, Ghost, even though they've struggled a lot, I think they're still a top 5 team. I mean, Dignitas now the new roster as well, but the 2 EU, 2 NA. I guess if you classify them as an NA team, I think they're in the top 5, even though they're a new team. They might struggle the same demise that Ghost had and we had. At the very beginning, they might do really well and then struggle. But I feel like they'll be a top 5 team just because Wookie and Gustav coming in there are really solid team players. So they're going to be a top 5. So Tempo, Dignitas, Ghost. I would say the old Optic, but now that they removed 17, I think they're gonna struggle, so I wouldn't put them in top 5 anymore. Envious are looking.
Yeah, that was a
Envious are
strange
looking
move.
really freaking strong recently. Yeah, that was. I'm not gonna go into it. You never know what's the internal problems and stuff like that.
Of
The
course,
issues like
yeah,
that. I personally think they were doing fine, but they were not doing great either. I feel like they were playing too passive. I mean, we could have come down to in-game leading and stuff like that. But I think 17. If he was a shot caller, he was doing a decent job in my opinion. But whatever, that's a different case itself. I can't get involved. But I would have definitely put them top 5 if they had 17, the old Optic roster. They were always consistent. They were always there. But now, I would say Envious. Like Envious have been, I mean, from the history of NA scene, have been like at the very beginning they were really strong back then. But then they failed to qualify Katowice, I think it was, and then they struggled. As far as I know, but like recently, like when I watch them play DreamHack and stuff, they've been pretty good. And GLL, like they looked like really solid in my opinion. They look like a top 5 NA team right now. Like you posted on Twitter today, Caden's stats and stuff. Caden is just an animal in my opinion. He's really top fragging like crazy, and Venerated as well. They brought him back if I'm not mistaken. They had a period where they had a period where Venerated was not there anymore. I don't know why. I think Venerated, I don't know, we can't really say what happened there, but I think they brought him back, and I think when they brought him back, they're starting to look a lot better. Venerated like had a lot of clutch moments as well, like, so they're looking good. Envious is looking good. I actually think Wildcard as well, in my opinion, even though they never had results, they've always seemed to be there. I think those 5 teams, I would say. I could be completely wrong. NA could be laughing at me right now, like you don't know about the scene, which I could be true. I don't know too much, but from the outside perspective, that's what I'm seeing. I see Tempo, Ghost, Dignitas, Envious, and possibly Wildcard as like the top 5 teams right now in NA.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think you might be missing a couple though, like Totality, for example.
Yeah, the thing, yeah, Totality, I would rank them there as well. It's just that I feel bad for them. I feel like they're the same situation we were. Like,
I feel so bad for Totality,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, I love the guys as well, and
you just brought that name back. It's just the reason I didn't say it because they didn't qualify for DreamHack and they haven't qualified for LANs. But I also rank them as a top NA team. It's just that they're getting unlucky. They're just not getting there to go to LAN and prove themselves. You know what I mean? So
they've been like 3rd place or like 1 rank below qualifying so many times. It's
yeah.
That's a bummer. Yeah, for sure. I feel like they're one of the top teams too. I think you can put them before Wildcard, even though Wildcard qualified, just because of their results. And I feel like that too. I agree completely. Just feel bad for them that they haven't qualified. That's why they're not top 5 yet. But once they break that, I think they're good. They're good players. They're a good team. They just have to hopefully qualify one day and prove themselves even more, in my opinion.
What about EU then? You got any strong opinions about top EU teams? No bias, by the way.
No bias. I mean, obviously FaZe. No bias in FaZe. Definitely. FaZe, obviously, still the best team in EU and in the world. But I feel like that's gonna change soon. I feel like at least in the past 2 weeks we have been in a better shape or form than FaZe has. I think we've had better results. I mean, we won Curse, we won OGA. We had good like PUBG Online. We came 4th in PUBG Online, which was kind of disappointment, but we tried new things. I don't know why. The reason we failed in PUBG Online is because one of the games we decided to try something else because we did not care. That was our mindset. We was like, it's just this. I'm gonna quote what we said. This is just PUBG Online. We're here to let's treat this game as practice because we have PGA and stuff like that. We just wanted to practice, and it went horribly wrong. And I don't want to say, but like then after that game was like, fuck, we could have won PUBG Online. We should treat it serious, but it was way too late by then.
Yeah.
So we kind of threw that. We should have definitely come 2nd or 1st in PUBG Online. In my opinion, we've been playing really well, like OGA. So the past 2 weeks, I would say we are ahead of FaZe in terms of results.
I mean, it's hard not to say that when you win 5 out of 8 of your games at the recent tournament.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that could be one tournament got lucky, but we did win Curse, we did win OGA, and we have like really good results. Like overall, we've had better results in the past 2 to 3 weeks. So in that sense, we are in the current form better than FaZe, but in the overall sense, no. Like we still haven't hit that consistency. We can like next week bail on the. It's just FaZe is just too damn consistent. So I would put still FaZe 1 because of that. Definitely, I think our 2nd, I would say, not trying to be biased, I'm just being realistic on the recent results and form and potential. Third to 5th, I don't want to rank them in any order, but I would say Vitality, Rogue, and
Nice.
I would say Kinguin, Knights. Yeah.
Kinguin, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a little surprising to me, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think they still are there. I think I don't know. Knights have struggled as well, though. Like, that's the issue. Knights had a really good period where they won Curse. They were doing dominant performance in Awesome. They were like, I don't know, that first like 3 weeks they had was insane, and I ranked them personally like top 2, top 3 in EU and in the world at that point. But since then they kind of struggled a lot. They haven't been having the results they should have been having, and I don't know, something happened. I guess, I mean, Survival did end up leaving. They did play GLL with 3 and still did really well with GLL with 3.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, damn, if you're gonna win games at GLL with 3, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. They still did really well with GLL 3. I mean, I would put them there, but I don't know. Just I'm just looking at results and current form, and I think,
yeah,
you know, looking at that sense, it's hard to say. EU in that sense, they're all good teams, and they like, you can add 1 place, remove 1 place from each team, but you know, you can still name like all those 6, 7, 8 teams in EU, and it's so really good. I think FaZe is like tier 1, maybe us at tier 1 right now, and then you have like 6, 7, 8 EU teams that could be with us, you know.
I assume you're not counting CIS in this.
I'm not counting CIS. I mean, I would say Navi, obviously. Navi. Oh, if you tell me EU in general, then yeah, Navi would be there in the top 5 as well. I feel like, but at the same time, even though I think Navi is really good, like every time we've played against Navi as Liquid, or we played in the same league, we've always placed better than them. And I feel like a lot of teams always say Navi is like the 2nd best EU team or their top 3 EU team. And which they definitely proved themselves at PGL and GLL, right? They came 2nd and 1st in GLL. That's huge. You can't deny that. But I feel like every time we've seen them in online, at least when I've played against them, they haven't been that good. So from my POV, I think they're overrated. From my sense, like when I play against them and being in their tournaments. But when I look at it from what they've done and what teams, then they're not overrated, you know. It's just weird to say. Like, I have to be objective on the whole overall thing. And if I look at it that sense, I think they're a third in EU right now. I think they're after us, even though they have more LAN performances. I just think of current. I treat online as performance, even though in other like esports you don't really, you look at LAN and say, but it's just PUBG is not that many LAN. You can't really say that. But
yeah,
I would definitely say 3rd in EU, and then like with 4th, 5th is Vitality Rogue.
What about Avangard? Because those guys are all over the place. Like, they win a LAN and then they get 46th in Awesome. Like, what's the deal there?
Yeah, I think they lost Drainus and it all went down. I think I like Avangard. I like the guys Mumino and Keen and Nonactive. They're really good guys. The thing is, it's really hard to talk about teams in rankings and stuff like that when you know the guys and you're friends with them, because it's like, if I say something, they might treat it in a bad way and stuff. I hope no one that's reading this or hearing this like treats it. It's just me being objective in a sense of like results and performance, not really being against players per se. I hope they take it that way. There's a lot of people that when you just talk negative about them, they'll like go against you, and it's like, oh fuck Scoom now, you know, like, you know, you can talk objectively about.
No, yeah, I don't know anything about that. What are you talking about? I've never talked bad about any teams.
Like you talk shit about Liquid, and like, even though I kind of disagreed with some things, I mean, it's still justified, and I'm still like, what's the word, like, I still value your opinion, and I'm not gonna go like, oh, you are negative against us, that's like, fuck you, I'm not listening to you, you know. Like, I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to that. I've seen people like, you know, saying Liquid are not doing that good, you know, we haven't been doing that good, you know, can be negative about our comments. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, that's good, like, that gives me more motivation, but I'm not gonna hate you because of it. You have an opinion, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna hate you as a player or dislike you in any way. That's your opinion, and that's fine. And that's one thing when I talk about teams, like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but like, at the same time, you know, I'm just giving my honest, objective opinion. And Avangard, I feel like, yeah, they won IEM. I'm gonna be straight up. I think they won IEM Katowice, but I think they were way too overrated in my opinion as a team overall. Even though I think they were probably a top team EU back then, they lacked online results. I don't know if you saw them. Like you said, Awesome, they were placing even bad with Janus. They were at the bottom of the league. Yeah. I don't know if they were playing that much. I don't know if they missed games, but they were not providing performance, at least online. PUBG Online, they were struggling as well. Like, they haven't got results. The only results they technically have is IEM. Like, look at their results, all the statistics of all the online leagues they've played. The only time they've done well is IEM Oakland, where they qualified, where they came, I think, 4th place, but they couldn't go because of visas. Then IEM Katowice, they qualified, they came 3rd or 2nd, which they did well, and then they won Katowice, but that's it. That's all they have, and all they've ever had. So in that sense, you know, even back then, after winning Katowice, I didn't really rank them over a lot of EU teams, in my opinion at least. And now since Drainus left, I think Drainus is a monster, and I feel bad for Vanguard. I mean, they're a bit struggling right now. I don't know what's going on there, but they've fallen way shorter than they have been. I don't know. Like I don't know what's going on, but they're definitely struggling. And Navi now with Drainus added is looking good. It's looking pretty good. But Navi have more or less the same kind of as Vanguard, I would say as well. Like they won lands, but they struggle. I mean, they did come second in PGL. It's just like the tournaments, the leagues that I've faced against them, like in PUBG Online, they aren't contenders, right? They won that though, but they're not in Showdown yet.
Yeah, because they started as like Groovy and only recently got picked up. So
yeah, I don't know. It's just when we face them, they haven't done so well, but they're definitely a top 3 team. Yeah, I'm just looking from that perspective.
Yeah, well, hopefully no one attacks you for it. I'm holding him at gunpoint to give his opinion, by the way, if anyone's wondering.
Yeah, I don't mind. Like, I'm pretty open about things, and I try to be. I try not to be toxic. Like a lot of people think like when I post stuff on Twitter and stuff like that, like I'm just giving my thoughts on my opinions. But sometimes I do regret the way I word things. But it's just like I don't really dislike or hate anyone. I'm just giving my own opinion. And if you don't like that, that's fine, I guess. But
I think most people kind of understand that, though. You know, I have kind of the same problem where when I give my opinion, sometimes I give it in a way that's a bit too vitriolic for some to handle.
Yeah.
But I mean, most messages I get from people are like positive, that like just hearing opinions from people, and I assume it's the same for you. But then you'll get one or two people, like from a guy on EG I criticized last week, who basically just says I'm, you know, wanting attention or looking to stir a reaction or something. So I bet you get some of those as well, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, not maybe reaction. I've been posting and I've been opinionated for such a long time. I'm just passionate about PUBG. I'm passionate about everything. So I just use Twitter as a platform and just to give my opinions out, you know, and that's it. I really dislike putting people down or anything like that. That's never my intention to like do stuff like that. I just give my opinion and that's it. Like all the, especially like with the NA EU banter, like I said earlier, I think someone, like I tweeted that the EU has a 100k final and the NA has a 150k final. I'm just moving to NA, right? Like I think that's
yeah. Well, that's kind of bullshit too, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of bullshit in a way. And then I think D-Man said they even have half the players, right? Like half of the players, as in half the teams. They have half the teams of EU. Like we have 1k signups, they have like 300 signups. That makes no sense. And I posted, you know, not only do they have half the players, they have half the skill as well. As a banter, I said half players, half skill. Even though I still think EU is slightly better than NA, I don't think it's as much as I portray it. I feel that it's still like kind of close or really, really close. It's not like NA shit or anything. It's just the EU NA banter. It's just a tweet like that. And apparently it caused shitstorm like in the NA scene or something. Like everyone's like doesn't like that tweet or something. It's like, I mean, NA is known to banter shit ton. If you throw out banter, you need to learn how to receive. Like, you know what I mean? Like I treat it that way. Like if I throw banter, people throw banter back at me. I'm perfectly fine with that. Like throw banter EU, throw banter me at Liquid. I don't mind that. I find it fun, and it's just like a thing of esports and stuff like that. So when I post something like that, just don't treat it too seriously. I'm not like bashing or hating or targeting anyone. I'm just like doing a funny banter. You know what I mean? Like back and forth.
I'm gonna edit that sound bite to make you say I'm bashing and hating on everyone.
Damn you! Fake news.
Fake news. NA has the best fake news. If you didn't know, it's tremendous. No, yeah, I think that about does it for what I wanted to cover, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was good. It's fun. Probably talked way too much at times, but yeah, I just ramble so much about PUBG and shit.
I'm sure people would rather hear you talk than hear me talk, so it's all good. All right, man. Catch you later. Good luck in all your upcoming events, especially DreamHack. Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you, man. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.